Your sales team is working hard. They're making calls, they're doing the demos, they're following up, but the deals keep stalling at the same stage. So you think we need better sales training, a new CRM, different compensation structure. But what if I told you that your problem isn't your sales process at all? I spent 17 years as a federal criminal defense attorney, and here's what I learned in the courtroom. The lawyer with the best story wins. Not the most evidence, not the largest argument, but the one with the most compelling story. So when I started working with founders, I kept seeing the same patterns. Businesses with sales problems were actually having story problems. They were trying to fix sales and execution when the real issue was three levels up. Here's what I mean. When a sales problem lands on your desk, it looks tactical. Conversion rates are down. Deals are dying a month or two out. We're losing to competitors on price. So you do what any smart operator does. You try to fix the sales process. But in my work with business owners that have been trying to scale from 3 to 10 million and beyond, I've found that 70% of the time the sales breakdown is actually a symptom of one of three story problems. So here's what I mean. Your sales team can't sell if they can't clearly articulate what your story is. Now, and if you're unclear about what your vision is, your story, and where you're going, your team is trying to sell with a broken narrative. So let me break this down. The three story problems disguise themselves as sales problems. First, vision problems end up looking like sales problems. Your sales team asks, "Who is our ideal client?" And you say, "Well, right now it feels like anyone who needs what we do." That's not a vision problem that will create sales issues. That is a sales issue right now. So, because you're pitching to everyone, differentiating to no one, and wondering why decision makers don't see you as the most viable, the most obvious option, you don't have a positioning problem. You have a we never clearly defined who we're serving and what we're building. So, while that may seem really obvious, to have a defined ideal client, right? What happens is that your sales start to get rocky and that ideal client tends to go out the window. And it creates real murkiness for your sales team. So that's one problem. The second is motivation problems end up looking like sales problems. This one's a little sneaky. So your team is super talented. They're hitting, the activity metrics, but the deals are starting to slow down. They're starting to fizzle. So here's what's actually happening. Your team doesn't believe in the story that they're telling. Maybe because you don't believe it fully yet. Maybe because the internal story, the one that leadership meetings talk about, the one that you guys are all sharing, doesn't match the external story that your sales team is supposed to sell. So I see this constantly. Business owners who have maybe pivoted or evolved, but never really updated the narrative. Your sales team can feel the disconnect. And if they can feel it, your prospects definitely can. Third, there's a goal setting problem. So often goal setting problems can look like sales problems. Your goals end up not being connected to your vision. So your sales team is chasing a revenue number that has no meaning attached to it. Hitting $10 million isn't a story, it's a metric. But hit $10 million so we can expand into enterprise and finally solve problems at scale, that's a better story. That's something a sales team can get their hands around, they can sell. But now we're not just closing deals, right? They're ending up building something and they're trying to get momentum towards an actual goal. So when goals don't connect with your vision, the sales team is executing tasks. And that's why you're stuck in meetings managing their pipeline instead of owning them. So I want to tell you a story. I worked with a founder last year, $6 million in revenue, 25 employees, and a sales team of about 5 people. They came to me because conversion rates had dropped 30% in 6 months. They'd already tried new scripts and new CRM and even brought in a sales consultant. So I did what I always do. I ignored the sales process completely. Instead, I started to talk to the founder and I asked, if I asked your 5 sales reps right now what problem they're trying to solve, what problem your company is trying to solve, and who it solves it for, would they all say the same thing? There was a long pause. And then they said, probably not. We didn't touch the sales process for the first month. Instead, we clarified the vision. We rebuilt their story. We made sure that every person on the leadership team could articulate in the same way what they were building and why it mattered. Then we cascaded the story to the sales team. Conversion rates recovered within 45 days, not because we fixed the sales, but because we fixed the story they were selling. So if your sales team is struggling, before you overhaul your compensation plan, hire another sales trainer, or do anything else, I want you to ask yourself this question. Can I articulate our vision in 1 or 2 sentences? Does my leadership team tell the same story I do? And are our goals connected to something meaningful, or are they just numbers on a spreadsheet? If you hesitated with any of those, you don't have a sales problem. You have a story problem. So I help founders do this. And right now, because we are in Q4, I have created a free diagnostic tool. It's called the Q4 Goal Recovery Kit. And it's there to help you figure out exactly where in your chain things are breaking, whether it's your vision, goal tracking, mindset, or execution. So the link is in the description. It takes about 10 minutes and it'll show you whether you have a sales problem or whether your sales problem is something deeper. So I'm Linda Perry. I help businesses scale from where you are to where you want to be by fixing the story first, then the systems. I will see you next time.